Well, I thought I would do a bit of a shop tour today, since this project is not only about making a poem and keeping the bees and making performances on the lyre, but also about making objects from the story. The whole thing is kind of a carefully constructed excuse to make fun things. So this is my shop. My grandfather built this house. The shop is in the basement where he had his wood shop. He was a carpenter, so it's kind of fun to continue making things here. And this is the jewelry side of things right here. I've got a jewelry bench actually made in college. It's lasted me for a very long time. I expect I'm just going to keep using the same one until I can't use it anymore. We have a place for soldering. I've got all kinds of torches here. I've got some ventilation for some of the more egregious acidic processes I utilize. Kiln. I can do enameling or burn out waxes in there. There's a casting machine down in here, which basically it's a centrifugal spinner. You melt the metal in a crucible that points towards the casting mold, and you wind it up and it spins really fast and throws the metal in. It's a very exciting process. I'll show you more with a different view of what's on the bench. But this is where I do all the fine work, and I'm gonna cut to a new scene. Okay, so this is what it's like when you're actually over here. And so this is one of the things I've got to wrap up before I start some other projects. It's a drinking horn in silver with enameled dags. I'm still carving the wax for this, the finial. I got some more detail to get in there before I cast that up, and that is going to eventually get, hopefully the camera will get that, these really nice opals I have for eyes set in there. I'm trying to go in this more colorful sort of, I don't know, I like to call it Viking Nouveau. I want to have this sort of Viking Art Nouveau aesthetic happening in my work. I'd like to incorporate that into the bee pieces and the bee illustrations as well, actually. Working on watercolors, one of my favorite artists ever is named Arthur Rackham. And he did an amazing number of mythological and fairy tale illustrations. He's English, in the teens and the 20s. Kind of has a nouveau feel to a lot of it. This is fun. This is going to be the hilt and pommel for one of the swords that figures most in the story. And that's actual bee comb. It's drone comb, so it's bigger. And I have to carefully fill each of those little holes and not melt or disturb the wax to build up a mass in the center. That has to be a pretty consistent thickness. And then I'm going to cast it in silver, and then I'm going to enamel each of the little holes, and then stone it all flush and even and more shaped like a hilt, and then gold plate the exposed silver bit so that it's going to be gold. And I haven't decided if I'm going to go with yellow like honey colors or red like the actual Viking cloisonne garnet thing that I'm sort of trying to get at, but that's going to be a fun project that we're going to follow up a lot on. And I know you're going to ask about some of the stuff on the wall. That's a bunch of random stuff that I've put up over the years. My great-grandfather, my grandfather, myself, my father, we all smoke pipes. I know it's a guy thing in my family, apparently. And there's a fun Art Nouveau poster someone made from one of the pipe and tobacco places I like to order from. Below that is Alton, one of my favorite Irish bands, from a show I went to. There's a clock with the pennies. My grandfather made that. It was in the shop when I moved in. And there's little cutouts on it from when I taught high school art and jewelry for about 4 years at a local high school. It was really amazing. I loved the students. The jewelry shop was incredible. The administration was really, really vile. And I ended up quitting a job that was otherwise actually pretty satisfying. Mornings were a bit rough. And other than that, I have a poster a friend of mine brought back from a trip to Norway, the Battle of Stiklestad. It's a famous battle. And then another friend of mine brought back this, the devil up there, which is funny. I had some film crew in here doing a Norwich sword thing, which I'll show you in a bit that I'm working on. And they're like, can you take the devil mask down? But it's great because, I don't know if you can see, he's got a little clamp on his nose, and there's a very famous folktale about the blacksmith and the devil makes him an offer, and the blacksmith says, sure, give me a chair that no one can get out of, and give me some tongs that never let go, and you can have my soul. And the devil comes to collect his soul many years later, and the blacksmith is like, sure, man, have a seat. And the devil sits down and can't get out, right? Then he takes the tongs and squeezes the devil's nose, and makes the devil back out of the deal. So blacksmiths always seem to have this kind of power over that world in folk tales, and it's not just European; it's everywhere. So same with there's some Loki tales that are very similar. So it's a really archetypal concept. And so I have a tongue on the devil's nose up there to help me, I don't know, not lose my soul. It's easy to do. An art show I went to in, I don't know, like the early 90s when body art was all the rage. Hey, there's one of the drawings from the Arctic Fire Project that I kept. Unfortunately, some water damaged it. I was thinking I should actually get it framed. It's kind of fun. But anyway, some just funny odds and ends up here in the shop. Okay, some other projects wrapping up. There's a lot on my plate here, catching up since I was kind of out of business for about 6 months with all the COVID stuff, and it was really hard to actually get some projects done because I just didn't have working capital for them. But this is a sword for the University of Norwich. It's a pretty famous military academy just over the mountain here in Vermont. And they have a sword that is from late 1700s, early 1800s that the founder of the school had. They're having their 200th year anniversary, and they wanted a new sword. So it's basically going to be inspired by the original. They didn't want a copy. They wanted something new. And they gave me a ton of artistic license. But the handle had an eagle on the original, so I'm going to keep that. He's going to have, that's his head, his eagle here. And this is wax. I'm still carving this shape out. So I have to do feathers, and his body turns, and his feet are going to overhang like he's perched on the hilt, and we'll take it from there. It's going to be a lot of carving. I don't know if the camera will get it. Let's see if I can get it to... Hey, there we go. So it's a really fine Damascus, almost iridescent chatoyance, we like to call it, because it's so fine. And the original was actually made from raw iron, and you could actually see it's not Damascus because it was homogeneous, but you could see very fine weld lines in it, which I actually pointed out to the museum curators. They hadn't actually seen those before. And so I thought, well, it'd be really fun to go with a look like that, but then have a welded on edge so it looks like it was a really intentional thing. And it's fun. I've never done a really big saber like this thing. It's long, even for a saber. It's long and curved, and it gets a fuller. It's going to be pretty intense finishing this guy up. It's still in the square blank stage. They wanted it for some ceremonial performances before it was finished, so I gave him a fake handle and etched it like this. No one could tell on stage. So that's fun. This is a piece, actually the customer just wanted me to do a kind of a different style sheath for it. Because this sheath, the leather didn't cure right, and ended up, sad, floppy sheath. So I'm going to either put an insert in there or make a new one for him. But this, bonk. Oh, yeah, that's going to look great. You can just kick the camera stand, buddy. This one came out really, really, really nice. We'll see. Come on, camera. You would like to focus, wouldn't you? There we go. On this wonderful, interrupted, offset, twist and split. Oh, look at that, so clean. I was really happy with this. And here's the tricky part. If you know your pattern welding, flip it over. Oh, it has the other pattern going opposite it. And it all lines up just right. There's actually 6 bars of pattern welded Damascus that go into such a thing that looks so simple. Because it's a technicality. Like the casual observer wouldn't be impressed, but if you make this stuff, you're going to think I'm crazy. Which is fun. So this one also had a very nice piece of usik for a handle, which is fossilized walrus penis bone. But it's a great material for knives. Plus, you get to make endless stick jokes. Who doesn't like that? And what else? So a customer bought this and didn't want a sheath originally, and now they want a sheath. It's a piece of hearth steel. You can see it also has a characteristic pattern. This is more actually analogous to what the original sword looked like. More subtle than this, but anyway. And hearth steel is steel that's made kind of the Viking way of refining wrought iron into high carbon, was melting it in a little charcoal furnace and then hammering it out, and you end up getting these layers and patterns that look kind of like that. And this is going to be an axe for a walking, and this is the foot spike for a walking cane kind of thing that I do. They're called fokosh, or shepherd's axes. So those are some things on the bench that I need to get rid of before I can really throw myself into the bee sword, which is going to be really, really satisfying. And I will move on to the next piece of excitement in the shop. Okay, this is where it starts to look exciting, right? I've got a really nice anvil. How about that? Probably close to 20 years ago now, from Titan. It's a Nimba anvil. It's a Titan, which is actually the smallest one they make. It's only 125 pounds, but it is solid because it's so low and square and has a really great face. It's an Italian pattern made by, at the time, a guy up in Washington State. They are still made, but he passed away. He was a famous sculptor, actually, he got into anvil making because he just couldn't find an anvil in this style in America. This thing is held up beautifully. It's a joy to work on. I've got a 24-ton hydraulic press. I fired up to show you, but it makes a horrible screech while it's working, but it does the bulk of my work. I've got a 75-pound treadle hammer here that I built. You can put different dies in there and do things like draw out tapers for tangs. It's really good at things like that. It's surprisingly, it's actually good at detailed work because you've got a lot of control over how hard things hit. And you can raise this head, and you can use stamps and stamp them so you can hold something and then do a stamp, which would otherwise be awkward. Here's the forge. It's a modified Don Fogg style forge. It's turned sideways. That works great for billets. The other one, the tall, thin one, is a little bit better for just strict blade work. But it's a great little forge. I highly recommend building them that way. It's super efficient on gas. I've got another sword. This is actually how I like to sand my work. I put it in a vise, and then can't turn it. It's tightened. But I can rotate this out. I can get at it from all kinds of different angles and sand it and do all sorts of stuff. I'll show you this piece. It's called a falcata, which was an early Celtic style of short sword. And they're really fun because they have this hook on the back. And you can go crazy in here. But you can really flip the thing around. That hook gives the blade just this incredible degree of versatility. It's kind of like a kukri. It's a chopper. It's going to be fun. And I think we've got the exciting mad scientist control panel for the digitally fired salt tanks. I think they're just at a camera shot there, but I'll maybe give you a quick view. And that's how I do my heat treating on big blades. So what's great is I can turn that on and it'll show you what temperature the tanks are at, and I can just dial in. Oh, I want 1500 on the high temperature. It'll take it up to 1500 degrees. And oh, okay, I want to do the tempering at 480 degrees. I can set that in, and it'll do that, and it works really well. So I think that's most of the excitement on the smoothie side of the shop. Just for fun. Those are the salt tanks. So they're about 36 inches deep. I can push it up to 40 if I really want to, as far as blade length. And so there's just a chamber that heats up a tube of molten salt. That's why they're called salt tanks. The salt is currently solid, but I didn't know this. Salt, when you heat it up, turns into a fluid, melty thing. That's kind of crazy. 1500 degrees of molten salt, it becomes acidic in that state as well. And if you just get one drop of water or oil in there, it turns it into a cannon, shooting out 1500 degree salt. I actually did that once. Hole right up there was actually when I was filling them, and one of the chunks of salt went in there, and it had just ambient air moisture in it, but it was enough. Okay, and grinding and big drilling. So this is where I do kind of milling stuff on blades. This is probably one of the least expensive, reasonable grinders people recommend. I bought it when I started out. I thought I would one day get one of the nice $2,000 machines, and yeah, I hate to say it, this $500 machine does everything I need it to do. This whole thing tips forward, and there's a smaller contact wheel you can use in addition to this contact wheel. Whole thing rocks back, so you can work off that wheel. I've got a little ventilation system under here to collect the dust, and another big one. I'm actually really big on health and safety as far as this kind of work goes. And last time I got a chest x-ray for a back injury, actually. They said my lungs were really nice and clear, which is great, because I do stuff can come out of the forge that's bad. Grinding the dust here can be bad. Smoking a pipe, I guess, can probably be bad. You don't inhale, but it's still floating around. I don't know, whatever. They said I'm good to go. Whatever I'm doing, it's working. So that's about it for the shop. Yeah, it's a buffing wheel. That's not terribly exciting. There's some woodworking stuff. And that's about it. So hopefully I'll have more actual bee pieces coming up. In addition to the sword, I actually am working on jewelry pins. I've got actually a really good idea for what that's going to be. And I can actually show you that, because that is actually kind of fun. Last little guide. It's fun. New addition to the shop. I think it's going to open up a lot of possibilities. Next on the tour. Yeah, so we're back over towards the jewelry side of things. And I just got this. I've only done one thing with it so far, which is the test that comes with it, but I'll show it to you. I'm shocked at where this technology has gone just in the past 5 years. It's a 3D printer, which I would have always thought was kind of a crazy expensive thing. This model, because they just upgraded, it was $275. I mean, it's like really pretty unbelievable. It's got a good reputation. It's called the Elegoo Mars Pro. And how does it print in 3D, right? That's like a crazy thing. So this little thing goes all the way down into this little dish, which has photosensitive and hardening wax polymer goo in it. And there's a screen here with like fine pixel screen, like a phone screen, exactly like the screen on your phone. And underneath it is an ultraviolet light. So what it'll do is it'll go down and it will do the bottom part of, well, it'll actually be the top because it prints upside down. It'll do the first layer of the object that you are printing, and then it raises just, a thousandth of an inch. It's a little more than that, but not much. And then it exposes a slightly new pattern that's blocked off by the LCD screen. And so it'll keep going up and down and exposing and going up and down and exposing and building up very fine layer after layer. And this is the test sample that it prints. I don't know if you can see, hopefully. all the crazy spiral action going on in this thing. And the print, that's one of the reasons I like it, is because you can actually work with fonts on a computer and then incorporate that into things. Which you could do with like runes, for example, or just simple statements. Like the Norwich sword, that's probably going to get an inscription done that way. So anyway, and it can do multiple objects. I did these two at the same time. So for jewelry stuff, you can have it cast up, like 10 ring blanks all at once. I don't know, it's pretty cool, and there's some software available for it that is just unbelievable 3D design software. It's very complicated, but once you get it down, you could create forms that would otherwise be very difficult to hand carve in wax, like the spiral was on the inside of that. So I'm going to try and tackle that as a way to do the first bee pin, which is going to be inspired by this old gold bracteate that was found on the island of Crete, so it's very, very old. And it's a little gold press black, actually. And it has a figure on it that they call a Melissa. They think that the Melissa were these bee nymphs that are associated with Zeus. They fed Zeus honey. And anyway, it's a naked woman, of course. Who doesn't like that? Topless anyway. Her bottom part is shaped like a queen bee, and she's got wings. The wings are kind of they're more like bird wings, which is kind of a curious thing. But anyway, it's a personal image and device of mine, so it's going to be fun. That's, I think, going to be the thing that I would like to first send out to all the lovely patrons once I get to it. So there, we have it. I think that's a pretty good shop tour, assuming I didn't just cut my head off right now, and I have to redo this whole segment. I'll know in a few minutes. If not, I'll see you soon.